everyone, I'm Elaine Chow.
And I'm Trist Curless.
And welcome to the Musician's Loop.
Loop, like a drum loop?
No, like the kind of thing that a jeweler uses to evaluate gems.
Oh, like a magnifying glass, like what we'll do on this podcast, actively listening to music like a musician.
That's right. And every week, we are choosing a track to dive into together and share our thoughts about what we find intriguing about the song.
Whether it's songwriting, chord progression, instrumentation, recording technology, arrangement, whatever, we're looking at the music we love through the lens, or the loop, of decades in the music industry.
Hey, Trist, what do we have this week?
This week, we have a duet. As you're noticing, any of you who've listened to many of our podcasts, I do just enough research to know I didn't do quite enough research. I'd love to find out if there is a duet ever recorded by two people with more total Grammy awards. This duet encompasses 45 Grammys.
Oh, 45? Now, is this like album Grammys or any Grammy?
Just Grammys.
Okay.
Just two people with 45 Grammys.
Between them. That's pretty impressive. So who are these two people?
When you hear the two, it'll make sense. You'll go, oh, yeah, well, okay, that'll do it. It's Tony Bennett and Stevie Wonder. Our first return customer, Stevie Wonder.
That's right. Yeah, we did a Stevie song a few weeks ago, right?
Yeah, as much as I love him, it's a small miracle that it's taken this long to get more than one Stevie Wonder appearance.
Okay. And Tony Bennett, I mean, he is classic, right? We're talking classic crooner. He is so productive in terms of the number of albums that he's released, the number of duets that he's done. But yeah, I would love to talk a little bit more.
He did a few of these Tony and Friends albums. And then he, later on in his years, had full albums with Katie Lang. And in his later years, more famously with Lady Gaga. But always dabbled in doing these. When you did it for as long as Tony Bennett did, you always had to find ways to mix it up. So this comes from an album that's called Playing With My Friends. Bennett Sings the Blues. So we do have a blues tune for you.
Okay, so what's the name of the song?
One of the most ubiquitous songs in the blues that there is. It's Every Day I Have the Blues. Sometimes just called Every Day. I like the most famous version by Count Basie Band with Joe Williams.
Okay, so with that, we're going to leave the links in the show notes for you to listen to it. But before we get there, Trist, can you remind everyone, especially our new listeners, how we should be aiming to listen to music as we are participating in this activity?
Yes, the Musician's Loop podcast is a podcast that loves you to do the best listening possible. So we like to perpetuate the thought that listening is precious and we don't take enough time to stop and just listen. Not while you're watching a show, not while you're cleaning, not while you're looking at your phone. I mean, I'm guilty of all of those things for sure. But take this time if you can, if you have the ability to. Maybe you're out in a place where you can't do this, but if you can improve your listening situation, grab the good headphones. And then grab the better headphones and then get to a quiet place. Find the good listening room. Whatever you can do to make your listening situation just a little bit better, I think you will enjoy even more.
Awesome. So with that reminder, we're going to take a brief break and we will be right back. And we're back. That was so much fun. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, you could probably tell I mostly chose that. Of course, Stevie sounds amazing. He sounds just like Stevie Wonder. But man, the harmonica solo is key for me. I think people know he plays harmonica, but I just don't think he gets enough credit for what an amazing piano player and harmonica player he is.
Yeah, that was something that really struck me as well. And I think part of it is that having tried to play harmonica every once in a while, and you're like, oh, that's actually harder than it looks. And I actually had to go back and look up the harmonica on Wikipedia to find out more about the instrument. And part of the reason I had to do that was I just couldn't figure out, wow, does that really all fit in one instrument and one really small instrument like that? And the answer is yes. But I was also thinking about some of the other things that I heard in the playing of the harmonica. I would love to hear about what you heard in that solo.
Oh, well, I'm just hearing like the effortless mastery of the instrument. If you were improvising any other way, it would be kind of the same. That's what most musicians strive for, like have my thoughts about something, let the instrument just speak for me and not have anything get in the way. Like, oh, because I'm not as good at the guitar, I can't play all of the ideas I have, or at the piano or whatever instrument. That's what you're looking for, is that mastery where you can have this connection of the technical elements of the instrument don't get in the way of what you've thought. You have this cool musical idea, but then you're inhibited by your ability to play the instrument, which is me on almost every instrument, which is why I'm still just a singer. So that's what I hear. If you were just doing a scat solo or playing on the piano, it would almost all be the same, is the thing that I think. And it's just effortless musical ideas. And, you know, being a blues tune, it's not as complex. It's not like, oh, what is happening harmonically here that he needs to fit? It's very matter of fact. It's like just effortless.
Yeah, fun fact. One of the things that I found out from the Wikipedia article about the harmonica is that one of the nicknames is a blues harp.
Uh-huh.
So thinking about harmonica and the role that it has in blues music. So one of the things that I heard in addition to that was the concept of bending, like pitch bending. This is something that you would generally hear in a keyboard with that little roller on the side. Sometimes, sometimes you would hear it in a stringed instrument by actually like increasing or like, you know, swinging the string to the side to be able to swing it up. But, you know, to hear that pitch bending in a harmonica was kind of special because I don't think you hear it that often, even in the type of music where you have harmonica as a solo. And the other thing that I heard was there was some really cool things having to do with, I think, the embouchure. So I was looking at that. An embouchure is something that I've really only heard within the context of brass instruments. But as I was looking at the harmonica Wikipedia page, it was talking about how that embouchure actually helps you to get additional sounds out of it. So I heard like this little trill that was happening near the end. I heard him going way, way, way high on the harmonica, which I don't typically hear. And both of those things just really proved out the mastery that Stevie Wonder has over this instrument.
Yeah, there's a few things. He uses a chromatic harmonica. There are a few different kinds. So it's a little bit larger instrument than what you would see normally in a blues band where the singer just pops out and plays. That's a little bit easier, I guess, but put the word in air quotes, in that, oh, this blues is in G, I'm going to pull out the G harmonica. So it's just diatonic to that key. So even if you're not really musical at playing the notes together, when you go in and out on that harmonica, at least it's going to be notes in the key of what you're doing, and it's hard to play quote unquote sour notes.
Right.
Now you still need to be musical and to be good at that as well. However, different than a whole chromatic instrument like a piano that's tempered. You can be in lots of different keys. We have a link in the show notes about a harmonica player named Howard Levy, plays with the band Bela Fleck and the Flecktones. He has a whole thing where he does a lot of the things most players do on the chromatic harmonica, but he does them on the diatonic harmonicas. And it's mind-blowing and it's crazy, and that's all I remember of it. Eventually I'm going to find the link and we're going to put it in show notes, and if you're interested in crazy mind-blowing harmonica techniques, that is where you go.
Okay. Awesome. Well, let's switch gears a little bit and talk about the blues, because this is the first blues song that we've done. I'd love to hear a little bit more about blues in general, and you know, if you can give us a little bit more context as to the blues itself, the style, the structure that we generally can expect out of the blues.
Right. So really the most basic structure, especially in jazz, rock, pop music, a lot of it stems from blues forms and chord structures. What I hear when I listen to this, because it's a whole album of blues tunes, and it's Stevie Wonder, and it's Tony Bennett, and they have schedules, the likes of people of Tony Bennett and Stevie Wonder's schedules. I don't know this for sure, but I would bet this is the first or second take of this song. And then, cool, great to be here, Tony, I'm out. Like, it seems so impromptu. And the key to that is the fact that it's a blues. It's not like they had to do any massive study and catching up on how the song goes. It is so famous. And I get that because when I listen to it, it's so loose, yet both of them are master musicians, so they fit in very comfortably. The biggest tell for me is at the end, the band is playing what seems like a prearranged, we're just going to circle around this ending a little bit. And it sounds to me, even though they're great at it, they do not have a plan how they're going to end the song. And it ends, and it's not bad, and no one really probably notices. It doesn't sound like, oh man, that was so unprofessional. They didn't know what they were doing. No, it was that we're musical enough to make something musical, even though we didn't plan it, kind of an ending to me. I have a feeling it's one of the first takes they did of it. If they did even more than 2 or 3, I'd be surprised. So that's something that's really cool about this kind of an album. And I'm forgetting actually some of the rest of the album. There may be some other things that are more arranged, have some more variations of some things. But this is definitely a, okay, cool. I've got like 4 hours on Thursday that I can come over and be on your album with you. And okay, bring my harmonica. Great. Sounds awesome. We'll see you there.
Yeah. And we'll do it in this one key.
Exactly. Yeah. I just love it for that. I love the looseness of it and yet the mastery at the same time.
Yeah, a couple of other things that fed into like, first of all, you were talking about the simple and common structure. It is also just 3 chords. Like a lot of the blues tends to just live on 1, 4, and 5. But the other thing that I noticed is that Tony and Stevie actually switched back and forth. So Tony had the first verse, Stevie had the second verse, Tony had the third verse, Stevie had the fourth. And then near the end, they were actually trading 2s. So they were calling back and forth where they were playing with each other in that way. And then Stevie ends it and ends on like either the diminished fifth or the tritone, however you want to call it. But he just like, you know, wiggles around and really just like adds in that entire soul gospel feel into it at the very end, ends in this very jazzy place. So I just thought it was interesting that that structure is really common in the blues, and it lends itself really well to what you were just talking about, which is I'm really busy. I just need to prep my part. I really don't want to concern myself with needing to blend with anyone else or matching exactly this riff. You and I both coming from a cappella, we have to memorize these riffs to be able to get them so tight so that it sounds so natural. And in this kind of thing where you're trading 2s or you're trading 4s, enables each person to prep independently.
Lending back to my thought about how impromptu it sounds, it might sound kind of quaint where they'll say each other's names just before. I literally think some of that is almost like housekeeping, like directing. Tony's like, Stevie Wonder, just in case you forgot, you're going to go now. You know, like it seems like the underpinning of that saying his name to him. And then also just how legitimately just blown away Tony Bennett is by the solo. He's just like, wow. Okay, and then, okay, you did that solo. Now what do we do? Okay, let's do this. We did talk about we're going to trade smaller chunks of time. Okay, I remember we talked about that. And then they're off. Anyway, just there's so many little clues to me of it being pretty chill.
Yeah. So can we talk a little bit about the origin of the song? You mentioned that this was something that was fairly popular and maybe a standard.
Again, I think probably the most famous version of this is by the great Joe Williams with the Count Basie Orchestra. Also, B.B. King basically had it as his theme song. He would play that probably at every show. In kind of the jazz blues singer world, Joe Williams and B.B. King are probably the most famous ones. But I even looked back, and originally done by Pine Top Sparks. Now, you know it's old when your nickname is Pine Top, right? Love it. Old school blues thing from like the 30s, and then had somebody borrow / steal / rework the song, a guy, Memphis Slim, who his real name is John Chapman. I think credited to Peter Chapman, but no, his real name was John Chapman. Memphis Slim took the main thing of it and just kind of also did some other verses, added some more words. So you'd be curious to do some search and see which party made all the money of all the covers that ever got done of this one. There would be a bunch of cars and homes purchased from the numbers of times that this song has been recorded. Heck, they could probably both have some. This song has been done so many times. So I think that's the story of a lot of those kinds of things. You trace back and start looking, oh, they got that version from these people. Oh, yep, and I hear this. And then you go and find those early version, and you can hear the essence of it and how it evolves. Interesting note, even when I was listening through again to the Joe Williams that's so popular, there's a riff in the horns of the big band that are a song from Ray Charles. So as soon as we're done with this podcast, I'm going to chase that down and see which one of those came first. Or that's a great time to use the mailbag. And if someone out there knows, you can let us know and tell me all about it.
Okay, well, let's wrap out this section talking about Tony Bennett and his career. I know that he is incredibly prolific. He permeated pop culture, both my parents' generation as well as my generation. Can you tell me more about his importance to just American music in general?
Wow. I mean, as one of the great standard singers of all time, one of the early crooners, but also had a really interesting resurgence. We mentioned Lady Gaga, and obviously that was another thing. But boy, I think a real new entry into pop culture came when he did MTV Unplugged. Do you remember MTV Unplugged, where they would have artists come and do their hits and things, but again, just acoustic instruments, etc.?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So well into that being a thing, and then I'm guessing just trying to find interesting new things to do. They had Tony Bennett on there, which of course was interesting because he was almost always using acoustic instruments. But he did an MTV special, and all of a sudden the standards were back, and that album did great for him and just put him right back in where I'm sure many a parent and grandparent were listening to their kid and grandkid telling them about Tony Bennett and just like rolling their eyes like, yeah, he's been around forever. You're right, he is cool. So I thought that was cool. He always just kept wanting to do that thing. And again, this continued even at the end of the career with the aforementioned music that he did with Lady Gaga.
Yeah. One of the things that I watched during that time was Lady Gaga's interviews about her performances with Tony Bennett, and really how he brought out so much in her performance and how much respect that she had for him and vice versa. And there was something about her interviews that really made me think that she was talking about a much loved grandfather, and just the amount of love that she had in her voice for being able to perform with someone so iconic as Tony Bennett, and also just what she learned from that experience. And I think that we got to see a little bit more of her artistry by stretching into the standards, by stretching into more of Tony Bennett's music versus her more enthusiastic pop music that she's been doing. And so in some ways, like, she stepped out of the Lady Gaga persona and into Stephanie Germanotta, and into that performer that
she did sing a lot of jazz in her youth. She's like in the jazz choir in high school, so I'm sure she loved it for that as well.
Yeah, I love seeing that from artists and seeing a little bit more of their range, similar to what we're seeing out of Ariana Grande now, right? With the Wicked performances and her returning to more of her stage roots as opposed to the big musical performances that she puts out underneath her own name. So it's just really delightful to see that kind of expansion in our understanding of who they are.
Indeed.
Okay, well, any last thoughts about the song before we move on?
Man. Just don't forget about this one, y'all. Play this one for your friends so they can hear the magic of Stevie Wonder's harmonica solo. That's really the only reason I chose this entire song. Tony Bennett is amazing. Stevie Wonder's singing is amazing. But if I could literally just put that solo on repeat, I would. It's just so great.
It's absolutely gorgeous. Well, thanks for sharing this. And we're going to wrap up with our last segment, which is...
Mailbag.
That's right, the mailbag. We would love to hear from you. So if you would like to submit a question to us, please email us at themusiciansloop. That's LOUPE @gmail.com, or catch us on Instagram or Threads at The Musician's Loop.
Yes, and as you mentioned earlier, if you have any other thoughts about the song, your favorite Tony Bennett, or maybe there's another Stevie Wonder harmonica solo that I'm forgetting about that's just as amazing, drop us a line and let us know what you think.
Awesome. So this week comes from Alexandra K from Threads, and she is at Alexandra K Music. So this comes from November of 2025, and it's a short video that was shared with some context. She was performing at Zia Records in Las Vegas, I think. And she writes, first in-store performance and signing at Zia Records. I love you. See you at the next one. And so there was a little video that accompanied it just after her gig there. And one of the things that popped to mind as I was watching this was the role of record stores in the live music scene. And I'm kind of curious, what is your opinion of this? Like, is it a dying breed? Does it have a role to play? And what are your experiences?
Well, stuff in this category, it's probably going to seem like a broken record for me, but it's changed so much. I worked at record stores for 10 different cumulative years of my life. So when I was working there, it was more of the old school major label system where really the success on a major label was really the only success there was. Not the only, but a much bigger majority of people touring the world and or making music that the masses could hear could only happen via having big label deals. So the record stores were important because that was the outlet, because you didn't have streaming, etc. So I think the role is just so different. I think there would be employees at record stores who had favorite artists that they like. So maybe they were a little more inspired to do that little end cap display. But most of the time, even that isn't the person's inspiration. Oh, of the 10 artists that were allowed to put on that display, you pick the one you like the most, not just, oh, here's this person on an indie label that nobody knows, and I happen to get 2 little pictures of them, so I'm going to make a thing. That would happen in some independent stores, but that's all there is left now. I think they're important still in terms of finding other artists, just like in your streaming platforms that give you recommendations. That's just a streaming digital version of live in person. That's why there are sections of music in the record store instead of just all being alphabetical. I keep all my albums alphabetically by artist so I know where to find them, but that's easy for me. In a record store, I want Miles Davis to be in a jazz section because I want whoever's over there to be around other music that they might like that's in that section. So they're important that way. And then as an employee, oh, I see you've got that particular Miles Davis album. Have you heard this particular Freddie Hubbard album that reminds me a lot of this period of his playing, etc.? So they can be important for that. And the few places that do allow and have in-store performances and signing, frankly, those aren't for the artist. Those are for the record store and for their own commerce. Sure, you might get lucky and there's some synergy in that. Most of those things aren't like, oh, you know what we should do? We really love this artist. We'd love to have them come perform here. It's not impossible for it to be that way, but it's just not how it goes. It's, hey, I work for this indie label and we have this girl and she's playing at this concert, blah, blah, blah. That'll help us promote it if we can come in and do some signing, because then that'll bring traffic into your store and maybe you'll sell some more stuff. That's not really the store trying to help out the artist. The store is trying to help out itself, which isn't bad. It's just the way you framed it isn't really how it goes.
The times that I've performed in record stores has always been because someone's hired me to do it. And I wasn't entirely sure what the benefit was for either the artist or the store itself when we did these really small gigs. And it wasn't like they were huge gigs. Maybe we'd have 25 people or maybe we'd be performing. And I don't know exactly how the people heard about us or anything. I just showed up because it was a gig. But one of the things that you were sharing kind of reminded me of book signings and thinking about the authors that are out on the road signing books at a variety of bookstores, and some of the stores that have hosted a variety of activities, whether it's a meet the author kind of thing or other types of activities, either have a charter to do so, meaning that there's some kind of a space that caters to a specific demographic, for instance, Asian American bookstores, and they want to put something on for cultural reasons and really be that third space. And of course, there's probably book sales involved with that or other type of merchandise sales that are going on at the same time that the author bringing in people will help them with. So it is kind of a mutual benefit. Or it's one of those things where it's a broader bookstore, where it's a larger chain bookstore that is hosting an author. And part of it, I think, is that bookstores, similar to record stores, are struggling against the big name online booksellers. And we think about the online marketplaces that are there. It really doesn't enable a community to form around books. And one of the things that I've been thinking about is, what is the role of record stores and bookstores for these different communities in building up community, and also in thinking about the concept of third spaces? And I don't know if that's something that you're familiar with, the concept of a third space.
Yeah, I've heard this term before. What does this mean to you?
So a third space is defined as a space outside of home and work, where you can actually have more casual interactions with people. So you can think of a cafe, or like I mentioned, a bookstore, a record store, where you can have conversations with people who are interested in the same kind of things that you are. And there's been a number of studies out there that have said that third spaces are slowly disappearing, but you're also hearing people trying to find these third spaces for themselves. So it could be one of those things where it's like, oh, there's a maker space, or my martial arts club.
Record stores would definitely fit that for sure.
Yeah. And so thinking about, what does it mean to create and cultivate community, and what is the role of an artist in engaging in that? And I think that there is something that is kind of interesting about thinking through that entire ecosystem, especially in a world where we're becoming increasingly more detached from one another in these spaces. And I think things like concerts, things like in-person shopping experiences are those types of things where we end up with third spaces where people can gather and really have conversation or experience something special together.
Yeah. Is it just another facet of our culture no longer really being a monoculture? So trying to find those places where you can have experiences with others that are into the same things as you.
So what you were talking about before in terms of the relationship between the artist and the store, I see that as a mutually beneficial relationship where the store can help to promote these events, and also the individual artist can help to promote the event as well to their group. And it could be one of those things where it's like a Venn diagram, right? It's a brand new space. Let's go into this space. And certainly for me as an artist, it was the first time for me going into this particular space because it wasn't my local record store. I had to travel for it. And it was a really interesting space. But it was one of those things where I have to think a little bit more about it, because as I'm looking at more book signings, as I'm looking at opportunities to go see some of my favorite authors, or just to support people who I've met online, that is something that I would love to be able to continue to do and to commit to doing. So similar to that, I would be interested to see how we can intentionally grow these spaces. And I know we were talking recently about how we can support venues, and it seems like record stores are just another type of venue.
Yeah, I think it's an extension of that same conversation. That's a great point.
Awesome. So any last thoughts on this before we close out?
I think that's it. Now I've got the itch. I need to go to my local record store. So, okay, I'm going to go there. Okay, bye.
Okay, bye. So with that, thanks for joining us this week. We would love to hear from you. Please reach out to us via email or online via social media. We would love to hear from you. So with that, we'll see you next week.
See you later. Maybe music. Here I come. You were holding this thought all of that time. And don't forget this other point I forgot to make.
Just say yep.
Use your words. We used to say that when they were little.
We're going to have a great outtake section is what I'm saying.
Dude, that's going to be our moneymakers, all the outtakes.
It's a podcast. You have to say something.
You didn't like me shaking my head? Sorry.
I got to do that without the sigh.
And welcome to Flight 274.